It's lesson 7 and it's time to talk cutscenes in LittleBigPlanet Karting. These are the dramatic pre-race or post-race sections that show off the best features of your track and get the player ready to race. And in this tutorial I'm going to be taking you from the absolute basics of how to make them through to some advanced concepts as well. So let's get learning. Now there is so much to say on cutscenes that I am going to divide this tutorial into two. Lesson 7a and Lesson 7b. 7a is going to be covering the absolute basics on cutscenes because I want this tutorial series to be suitable for the absolute beginner. So if you are more advanced you may wish to skip ahead immediately to part B. Now if you come and examine your scoreboard you'll notice that there are these two strange boxes here, both that have an input and an output. Now this is where we attach our cutscenes. The left one is the pre-race cutscene and the right one is the post-race cutscene. Now what we're going to do is we're going to grab a section of force field because that's invisible in game. And we're just going to draw a small object to attach our camera to, because you can't attach a camera to a track and you can't just have a camera floating in the air. So we're just going to make an invisible bit of material to stick it to. I'm going to stick a camera on it, a movie camera, which is the blue one, and then by going into the camera you can have a little look at what it's looking at and all things like that. Move it down a bit lower to get it so it's looking dramatically down the track. And if when you go into a camera you can choose exactly what it's looking at, so it doesn't actually have to look out of the camera where it's physically sitting, but obviously it can be a bit more straightforward if it is. And then we just come over to the scoreboard and we grab the output from the pre-race and go into our camera, and then we grab the output of our camera and go back into the input of the scoreboard, and that is your cutscene. The most basic cutscene you can make is now ready to go. And if we start the level up, you'll see that when the level begins, instead of going straight into the race, we are now looking through that camera that we set up before. But you'll note that we actually have to skip this to end this cutscene, because we didn't set anything like timers or duration of the camera. We literally just stuck it in there. But you get the general principle. This is how the techniques that we're going to be using to put our cutscene together. Now I'm going to clone that camera. Because I actually want to use more than one camera in my little introduction cutscene. And again, I'm going to go into the camera, choose what it's looking at, and just find the angle that I like. And what we're going to do is create a little chain of cameras to develop our cutscene. So out of our first camera, we're going to go into our second camera, and then we could take this camera, camera 2 let's call it, and go straight back to the scoreboard and finish it off. But you can actually do this with any number of cameras you want. It doesn't just have to be two cameras. We can actually keep the chain going for 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And if you look at some of the cutscenes in story mode, almost every time there is a movement, they're probably using a new camera. So they probably have maybe 20 cameras in an opening cutscene. So I've created 4 cameras here to demonstrate this principle. And again, I'm going to go through with each one, and I'm going to tweak it so I get the angle that I want. Now, while I'm setting these up, I do want to just give some general advice on cutscenes. What you want to draw out the highlights of your level briefly. You don't want to have like a 4-hour cutscene that makes the player turn off, and also you don't want to have any kind of camera that makes your level look bad. So choose your camera shots very carefully, and my level here really doesn't look the best, so don't use mine as like a role model of what to do. Show off the best features that you've got here. So we went from camera 1 to camera 2. Now I've gone from camera 2 to camera 3, and I've just connected camera 3 to camera 4, and camera 4 is going to go right back to the scoreboard. But remember, we didn't set any timings in our cameras yet, which means at the moment it's never going to leave that first camera. So what we need to do now is go into the camera and find the section where it says hold time. This is the length of time that you will be looking through that camera through. And I'm just going to go into each camera that I've set up and just set them all to 2 seconds. And you can have different. You can have one camera that lasts for half a second, one camera that lasts for 5 seconds. They don't have to be the same. But I'm just going to go through and I'm going to set all 4 of these cameras to 2 seconds, and what we're going to find now is that this cutscene is going to go down the chain of cameras, looking through each camera for 2 seconds before then starting the race. And if I click start here, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Remember, of course, I'm running this this video faster than the original, so it won't look like 2 seconds. But then again, that works, and now we've got our cutscene in place. Now, when we're moving from one camera to the other, at the moment we're using what's called a cut transition, but we are going to change that where it says transition type to a pan. And if you flip through these options that I'm doing here, you've got soft pan, hard pan, and cut. And when you move to soft pan, you get an extra option at the top that says transition time, and this is going to be the time that it takes to get from the first camera to the second camera. And you need to set the transition not in the camera that you're sending from, but in the camera that you are sending to. So I'm not going to put a transition on the very first camera, but I am going to put a transition on cameras 2, cameras 3, and cameras 4. I'm setting them all to soft pan, but I'm changing the duration of each one. So I think my first one was 4 seconds, my second one's going to be, I think it was 2 seconds, and my last one's going to be 6 seconds. So this shows you that when the camera moves like this, it'll move at different speeds. This next one's going to be very fast, and then this last one's going to be very, very slow. So that's how you get those lovely movements at the beginning, camera movements that a lot of creators are showing at the beginning of their levels. But one thing I must advise you on is don't just have cameras that swing across the whole level and just randomly show bits and pieces of it. So I would use a combination of cuts and pans. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to use a soft pan between camera 1 and camera 2, and then I'm going to use a cut between 2 and 3. And then I'm going to use a soft pan between 3 and 4. And if you go down to the bottom of these options, you've got an option which says how you want it to transition, what effects do you want to use, and you can fade in and fade out. So what I'm going to do when I have my cut, because I want to show off 2 different sections of the level, rather than just having it going straight from one camera to the other, I'm going to set it to fade out of camera 2 and then fade in to camera 3. And you'll see it here. We'll have our soft pan here, fade out and cut, and then soft pan there, which I think looks a lot nicer than having the camera just randomly flying around the level, drawing out details which are irrelevant or perhaps not very impressive to the end user. And that is literally how we put together a basic cutscene with some useful little transitions and a variety of different effects on it. So just by using those techniques there, you'll be able to put together a basic pre-race cutscene for your level. Now, there are a lot more advanced things that you can do with cutscenes when we start to involve players, characters, and sequences. To get players into our levels, we need to get some spawn points here, and there's 3 types of spawn points: white, pink, and green. And the green ones are called movie spawn points. And if you're in your pre-race and post-race cutscenes, you aren't going to have any players in there unless you put down these green cutscene spawn points. And I'm just literally sticking mine directly over the white ones, so when I run the pre-race cutscene, they will appear where they will at the beginning of the race. So if I run this now, you could see there at the beginning of the cutscene that the players were in there. So they didn't need any extra programming or logic. I literally just needed the cutscenes there to make them appear. But supposing I want to make my cutscene more advanced, this is where sequences are going to get involved. And a sequencer can be found in the advanced logic section, and it looks like this. It's a big pink object that you can select and make longer and taller, or shorter and I don't know what you call it, fatter, I guess. It moves from left to right, and anything that appears on the sequencer will be activated as time goes on. And you can choose the duration of the sequencer. You can see you can see the different pink stripes there. You've got light pink, dark pink, light pink, dark pink. If you go into the options on the sequencer that I was just in, you can choose how long you want each stripe to be. And at the moment, I've got each stripe set to 1 second. So by stretching out the sequencer for 10 stripes, I know that I have got a 10-second cutscene. And then there's a variety of ways of using sequences that I'm going to be going through in part A and part B. But the easiest way is to just stick the camera physically onto the sequencer itself. And then what I'm going to do is select the camera, select my shot, and I'm going to move it to the shot that I was looking for. Now, I wouldn't necessarily recommend using this method with cameras. We're going to be coming to batteries later, and transmitters in part B, which I do think are a lot better. But just to show that this works and this is what we're doing, you can do it. And what you do is you don't select the camera, but you put your what do you call it, tweaker device, over the cameras, and then you just press right on the D-pad, and it extends those cameras out for that duration of time. So my first camera is lasting, 7 seconds, and the last one is lasting about 5. We then need to connect the sequencer up, as we did with the cameras before. So I've got the output going to the sequencer, and then I've just stuck a battery right on the very, very end of that sequencer, and I've connected that battery back up to the scoreboard, which is then going to trigger the end of the cutscene as well. So I've got the two cameras there, and where the cameras overlap, that is going to be the pan, and where the cameras are there on their own, that's where we're going to get the hold time with each camera. And you can see it works very quickly, very effectively, and it works. However, I think that there are simpler ways of doing this and better ways of doing this by using batteries instead on the sequencer. So I'm going to do what I did before. I'm going to put the camera nearer to where I actually want to take the shot, because I think that's going to help us understand this. Because the other problem is if you put the cameras on the sequencer, and then move the sequencer in any way, shape or form, you've actually just moved all your camera shots as well. So it's going to be far better to keep your cameras in the place that you actually want them. And I'm doing this with batteries. Batteries can be found in the logic section of your Poppet, and this time I'm stretching out the batteries by not selecting the battery and just pressing the right stick, the right of the D-pad, stretching the battery out, connecting that to the camera instead, and it works exactly the same way. And if I come out and show you the cutscene that I had at the very beginning of this tutorial, you can see just how crazy you can go with things stuck onto the sequencer. And if I zoom in here, you can see a whole load of batteries, but not just batteries, because I've also got a music on the far left and a load of sound effects. And this is really the advantages of the sequencer, is that I can set lots of different things to happen at lots of different points at different times and have complete control over it. And you can see from this absolute maze of wires here that I've got lots of different things triggered at different points. And if you watch that opening cutscene again, you'll see it's things like facial expressions, and it's the different camera transitions, and it's all set up to happen at exactly the right point, making a very, very effective and fun cutscene. However, I would personally recommend that you don't go the battery route either. And if you stick around and watch part B of this tutorial guide, I'll be showing you how to do the same thing but using transmitters, which makes the process a lot easier. So please give the video a like if you enjoyed it. Please subscribe to the channel if you'd like to see more, and do check out part B of this tutorial series if you'd like to see some more advanced things like transmitters and how to get players moving in your cutscenes as well. So take care, and I'll see you soon. Bye bye.